Hey guys, my name is Tyler Taylor. I'm an independent beatmaker and engineer. Today I wanted to share an effective way of implementing Maschine into Pro Tools. This setup was created to link Maschine's MIDI timeline with Pro Tools while allowing you to monitor Maschine sounds in Pro Tools aux tracks. This is useful if you prefer your host DAW sequencer but still want to use Maschine to its full capabilities. This may seem like a lengthy process, but at the end of the tutorial we'll save the session as a template so it can be a one-time routing exercise. Most of the concepts in this tutorial can be applied to any DAW, but in this video we'll be using Pro Tools. Current Pro Tools MIDI code limits you to using Maschine as either a singular loop constructor or a stripped down version of the Maschine software itself. This means in Maschine's MIDI mode, which is shift control on your hardware, if you wanted to play a drum part in on Pro Tools on a linear timeline, you would be unable to. Instead, you're forced to basically use the pads as a piano roll. This method is going to give you the most control possible in terms of zooming on the Maschine sequencer. MIDI related to Maschine is sequenced in the Maschine software, giving you complete note repeat functions on your hardware controller. Since Maschine only has 16 stereo outs, you are limited to using one group per Maschine instance, so use the pads sparingly on every patch of Maschine you have open. An aspect of this setup that is an improvement is the fact that you can use multiple MIDI surfaces at once controlling different instruments and plugins. Just in case you guys wanted to see my Maschine, I thought I'd show you. Alright, let's create a blank Pro Tools session. We'll call it Maschine Pro Tools combo. Okay, the first thing we want to do is create one stereo instrument track and 15 stereo aux tracks. Instrument 1, insert A, will open an instance of Maschine. Then we'll close out a Maschine. And then let's name these tracks. So it's easy just to name them pad because it will correspond to whatever pad is on the Maschine, basically. Okay, and then on Maschine, if for some reason you didn't have a blank project reloaded, go ahead and open a new project in Maschine. Next, what we want to do is create 10 patterns, or roughly around there, different patterns on Maschine. We can do this on either the software or the hardware. I like to do it on the hardware just because it's a little quicker, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The next thing that you want to do is set your general pattern length preference. This will vary depending on how you like to make your songs. So if you like to have something only be 4 bars, you're going to want to create a bunch of patterns to link your Maschine timeline to Pro Tools timelines. If you like to make something, let's say with 32 bars and you like to have a lot of variations and play it out, you're gonna want less patterns as opposed to someone who were to have 4 bar patterns. Someone with 32 bars would probably only need about 6 scenes to compensate for the length of the track. Always remember, in order to have Maschine's timeline linked to Pro Tools timeline, we have to make sure all of the scenes are selected. So to do that, click right above the patterns right here, and it'll select all of them. So now all of my patterns are selected. So when we'll play somewhere in Pro Tools, let's say a minute into the song, we'll come back here in Maschine, and there it is. about a minute into where these patterns would be. These are 4-bar patterns, so as you can see, I'll need a lot of patterns if I was to have a song that was 3 minutes or so. The next thing we want to do is route the machine sounds into the aux tracks that we created in Pro Tools. So in the old Machine 1.8, what you had to do was click on the individual sound, and under the out tab, you would switch the main out to whatever you wanted the out of the rewire to be. In Machine 2.0, what we can do is tab over here to the mixer, and what we'll do is take each sound and route it out. So in order, okay, so then the next thing we want to do is get out of Machine, come over to the mixer window in Pro Tools, Command Option Shift click when you have every track highlighted, the input section on the aux. You don't need the first instrument track highlighted, but go to the exit 2 of the Machine insert A, and it will route all of them in the right order. So now in theory we should be able to come back to Machine, and on pad 8 we can put a sound on pad 8. Let's put a alto sax. The alto sax should play on pad 8 here, so there it is. As I said earlier, to use multiple groups of Machine in your DAW, you'll need multiple instances of the Machine instance itself. So I'll do that in this tutorial just to show you guys. Basically, we just need to do the same process as before, and there's just a specific way of navigating through the Machine instances on the controller. It's not as easy as just switching from the highlighted plugin on Pro Tools of Machine Instance 1 to Machine Instance 2. You actually have to manually go into the hardware and change which instance you're in, which is a pain in the ass, but at the same time, you most of the time won't really need more than 16 pads if you're using Machine strictly as your percussion. So we'll go ahead and create one stereo instrument track and 15 stereo aux tracks. So create another instance of Machine in the instrument 2. Okay, and then automatically your controller will switch over to the new instance. But as you see, when you pan over to the old instance of Machine, even when you click on it, it's still the second instance that's active on the controller itself. So how you navigate through these, shift step, which will bring you into an instance dialog that you can cycle through with the 5th and 6th buttons above the screens on your Machine, and then you load the instance with the 8th button above the screens. To use pre-made kits in this setup, you basically just follow the tutorial up to the routing steps, and then after you load the pre-made kit, you do the routing step. If you're following along on the text instructions, you would just repeat step 7. Something you may want to take note of is Pro Tools automatically restores the session data of any Machine instance that you had open in a Pro Tools session, but just in case, you may want to go ahead and save the project and name it something similar to what you named your session. And if you were to save multiple instances of the Machine, you would just want to name them in a similar fashion. Another important thing to take note of is you always want to have Machine record armed, have the record button red when you're wanting to input data into the machine part of your setup. So if you're recording notes for Maschine, record arm the machine. If you're not recording for Maschine, you can go ahead and take it off and just use Pro Tools for all of your other keyboard and any parts that need MIDI that don't involve Maschine. A good tip is if you want to have the same sort of count-in that Maschine has, all you have to do is press Command K on Pro Tools and that will enable the pre-roll. So that's without the pre-roll. This is with the pre-roll. You can use the metronome on Maschine or you can use the Pro Tools metronome, whichever you prefer. Okay, that's pretty much it for the tutorial. I'm gonna go ahead and load up a kit and show you what it looks like whenever you have Maschine active and Pro Tools running through all of these separate aux tracks. The only other tip I have for you guys is if you want to create a template so you don't have to do this routing again, you go up to File, Save as Template, and you can save pretty much any session as a template. You might want to organize it in your own way, but this is just the basic routing to get Maschine into Pro Tools aux tracks. Thanks for listening, guys. My name is Tyler Taylor. Like, subscribe, and I'll have more Maschine and Pro Tools and sound design and mixing tutorials for you in the future.